Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is March the 10th, and we're running a little bit slow today because we had daylight savings time, and I do not love me any daylight savings time. I am a no on DST. We're going to be talking about the FBI and UFC. And we're going to be talking about federal employees who are crying about PTSD. I didn't mean to make it rhyme, and I didn't mean to make it an acronym soup, but that is what we've got going on today. A whole lot to cover, a lot of it in the news. Apparently, Canada has a new PM as well. So there you go. There's all the acronyms all right up front. And yeah, I had to do a little bit slower start because I commuted from the new place where we're moving to the old place where the studio is. And then we got to move the whole studio in the next couple of days. So it's going to be kind of a chore. And I'm doing it manually, which made me think about something over the weekend about self-reliance and about making choices. It's my own choice to move stuff. And I started seeing this piece. We're going to cover a little bit about credit cards in a moment. And I want to talk about self-reliance, the making of your own decisions, taking personal responsibility. It's a really American value to just own that you have made your own choices and that the consequences of those choices are your own. So let me give you my funniest little take as I'm moving all my crap, which I have a lot of. I started thinking, man, I've got to move a bunch of stuff and I've got to move it 8 minutes away, which seems like a total waste. I could run it physically if I was so inclined. I could do it over a period of a year probably. So I started thinking, okay, I've got all this junk. It's my own fault. I bought all this junk, or my family did. And then I realized we're probably richer in possessions and in running water and in electricity and in comfort than any king that has ever existed in the world, in the history of humanity. So maybe that's the silver lining on it, that we have all these things and we have the ability to have all these things. What I also realized is that I don't have servants or slaves to carry all my stuff. And that is the big difference between being a king and being a guy today. So, okay, that's what we're going to get into. That was the only silver lining that I had was like, man, I've got a lot of stuff. Look at lucky me. How about that? One of the things that I have, which you guys may know about, is a Faraday bag, and I'm going to put my phone in it right now, lest it ring while we're doing the program. Should have done this last time when we did the call-in program, and that gives me an easy discussion about my friends over at Silent. All right? Between government, big tech, corporate America, criminals, your privacy is potentially under assault 24/7. You can always be compromised. There is no other option. You have to protect yourself, and you can choose to do that by working with the folks at Silent. SLNT.com/Kyle is the website. Silent's Faraday products block all incoming and outgoing signals. It stops all radio frequency stuff and Bluetooth and so on so that your devices are invisible and safe from the outside world. Even commuting between the two houses, I threw my laptop in the Faraday bag and carried it over because that's just what I started doing now. It's a really good safety protocol. From their backpacks, phone sleeves, even now the pants, they've got patented signal blocking technology, which can stop wireless signals. It can stop an EMP attack that's going to be able to disable your generator. They've got huge bags. They've got small bags. They've got sleeves. They've got stuff for your tablet, your phone, your laptop. Like I said, your solar generator. They're making stuff for the military as well. All you got to do is put a device inside of it, close it, and that's it. You're safeguarded from unauthorized access. And you can go silent yourself by going to slnt.com/Kyle, save 15%, plus you get free shipping on qualified orders. You're seeing the E3 Faraday backpack, which has 2 individual sleeves, one for your laptop or your tablet. The other one is for your phone. They're removable. It's a really cool product. Check them out. You're going to save a bunch of money on it by using our promo code KYLE. Again, it's slnt.com/Kyle. Get that free shipping on qualified orders and check them out. Go silent today. We've got multiple products. I'm only going to get more. That's kind of how we do things here. When we believe in stuff, we add. And let's dive into this program. Let's go. I got some stuff to talk about. So if you're new to the program, thanks for joining us. I've been realizing that our reach continues to grow. And one of the neatest things about doing a podcast and having an audience like you all are out there listening to us. And if you're listening on Rumble or if you're listening on YouTube, we've seen 1,000 people subscribe to the podcast in the last 6 days on YouTube. I feel like somebody removed one of the blocks and suddenly we're able to reach an audience out there. So very cool if you're out part of that. Is that I occasionally meet people who have actually heard of what it is that I'm involved in. I had a friend from church who sits in the cry room with us say, hey man, I saw you pop up on my Instagram feed. And that's really cool. And it's really awkward for me because I'm just like, oh, now you've got me at a disadvantage. You know all kinds of things about me. There are hundreds of hours of what we're putting out there. Had a neighbor tell me that his wife listened to me at least a couple times. That's really cool too. So anyway, this is just kind of a great privilege. And what an interesting time as we see this. What I'm going to do today is going to upset some of you because we are not going to cheerlead the current administration. That's not what I signed up here to do. What I signed up to do when I started speaking in the first place is say things that I believe are accurate and true no matter who it upsets. And if one of my friends decided to come out and do things that were dangerous, dumb, wrong, whatever, antithetical to the principles that we stand for, promise something and is not delivering, you would hear about it. And that includes, even though I voted for Donald Trump, if Donald Trump's administration starts doing things that are dangerous, foolish, or whatever, I think one of those things is talking about anti-Semitism and trying to pull money. Look, I don't think we should be supporting federal universities to begin with, or universities with federal funds, but going after people for speech and adjudicating what is and what is not appropriate speech, I think that's dangerous. And so I'm going to say that. I'm also going to say things about what's going on with our bureau because I expect that the FBI is going to be handled. That is the one thing that I voted for, is that some people need to be made whole and some people need to be held accountable in the agency that removed me and made me lose my anonymity and be able to be recognized by people on my street. So that's what I signed up for whatever it's worth. I also signed up to see Canada get its feelings hurt. I don't know why I think Canada is a good punching bag, but Canadians, you are my favorite and the silliest and the most polite people, the people that can be insulted and then also will apologize to us for insulting you. Got a little bit of news out of Canada. So here it is. They have a new prime minister, a guy named Mark Carney, and there he is standing in front of the Liberal platform in the Canadian Maple Leaf. I had to go read about this guy because I don't know anything about him. And apparently they picked someone who is even more leftist, or at least on the same general sort of spectrum that their former guy, Justin Trudeau, aka Justin Castro. Here's the AP, as clean as we can get it, saying he's a former central banker. He was the first non-British person to be named the governor of the Bank of England. He ran the Bank of Canada from 2008 to 2013. So that's his background. It's in finance, it's in economics. As I read it, I'll have to double check again, but I know he has at least a master's in economics, maybe a PhD. I know he went to Harvard. So 2013 to 2020, he was in charge of the Bank of England, helped manage Canada from the worst financial impacts of the 2008 financial crisis, kind of steered them out of that, became the first non-Brit to run the Bank of England. Bank of England was apparently founded in 1694. I don't know why that's part of this article, but it is. He was a former Goldman Sachs executive. Goldmans tend to hire very intelligent people, but it doesn't mean that they're people that have smart or good ideas per se. We'll keep an eye on what's going on with our neighbor to the north. Apparently, he has triple citizenship, both Canadian, UK, and Irish citizenship, but he's going to consolidate now so that he only has one. That seems like a smart move if you're going to be prime minister of the country. Who knows how long he will last there? And yeah, he does. He has a master's and a PhD in economics from Oxford and an undergraduate degree from Harvard. So that's interesting. I had only one message. I don't have a lot to say. Well, let me just show you him getting chosen. People were very excited about this. The Canadians that show up, this kind of thing. This doesn't seem like the Canadians that are most likely to be excited about becoming the 51st state, who are kind of probably rural, just like everywhere right now. There's an urban and a rural divide. It is the divide in this world, at least in the first world, is not between people who are of the same nature and live in the same place. If you live in an urban area, you tend to lean towards more quote unquote liberal, which is to say more government. That doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they call it. And then people who actually want real freedom tend to live on their own, and they tend to be more self-reliant, and they tend to live in more urban areas. So here's the city dwellers of the world getting very excited about their new prime minister and the big cheers. I'll just play a little clip for you.
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
That's very, very exciting. I think the most irritating thing about Canadian politics is that they have to simulcast it in two languages. First, in English, the language of America and freedom and the people that run this continent. And then secondarily, in French, for no particular reason other than there's some like real spiky people that live in Quebec, and they want to have their language represented as well. They have the French heritage. Whatever. I have a little message for our friends up in Canada. I don't know if you guys know this, but I've been looking. Is there a fixed amount of postage that it takes to send a letter to Canada? I'm not the only person who's wondered this. It actually turns out that my favorite character from a show that is actually pretty fun to watch, Parks and Rec. I think my wife watched all of it without me, and then I've slowly caught pieces of it on airplane rides over the last couple years. My favorite character is Ron Swanson. They were making fun of conservatives, and it turned out he was the most popular candidate or the character there, because he's the best. Because Ron Swanson thinks the way that we do. Here he is asking the same question I have. How do you send a letter to Canada?
How much postage does it take to send a letter to Canada?
Who's it going to?
Canada. It says, "Dear Canada, you."
That seems pretty straightforward. I just, if you guys know the answer, make sure you put it in the comments below. It doesn't matter where you're listening. If you're over on Spotify, you can leave us a comment. You can leave us a 5-star review. The same thing for Apple. I will go look for these if you actually know the answer. How do I send it to Canada? Just as an open letter to Canada. And yes, I will address it. Dear Snow Mexicans, F you. All right. Last thing I found out about this guy is that he was the special envoy for climate change and finance. So those things are both to combine. Obviously, we need to worry about climate change. Again, a lefty taking over in the America's attic. So we'll see how that goes. Or Donald Trump will conquer them. What it made me also think is that Donald Trump has been getting his way on a lot of this stuff. He's been making plans and then carrying them out, whether or not the people that were involved in them liked it. I would not be surprised to see something bend or a failure up there lean into the sort of these silly ideas that he puts out and gets people really flabbergasted. And then they end up doing the thing that he wants them to do. And the great example of that is what's going on in Europe right now, because Donald Trump has basically said, hey, NATO people, he did this last time as well. It's time for you to pay your share. We've been your warm, woolly blanket. We've been keeping you comfortable and safe and happy like a big whoopee. But America is done coddling you. You have large economies. You're making terrible decisions. You don't play fairly with a lot of our automobile manufacturers and some of the other products we want to export. So, yeah, why don't you do your own thing? Why don't you handle your own defense? And so they got very, very incensed. You remember he went there in 2018, I want to say, in his first term, and got laughed at when he started saying things like, you're going to end up kowtowing to Russia, and you're going to be buying all of your fuel and your oils and your energy products from them. And they all kind of made fun of him. And he said, you're going to be beholden to the Russians. And lo and behold, now they want to back up Ukraine, God forbid, while they're still buying Russian oil. So they're actually funding both sides of the war as well. And so he did it again. He pushed back on him and said, hey, you need to handle your own military budgets. And so they decided to show him. It's kind of like a teenager who gets chastised and told, you don't get the car until you clean your room. And so the teenager gets really petulant, pissed off, and they kick some rocks and they go outside and then goes upside and makes the announcement, I'm going to clean my room because you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do, which is clean my room. And then they go do exactly what they were told. The EU has decided to drop $800 billion into their own defense, kind of like Donald Trump was kind of doing. So they obviously played him really well. Like I said, it just seems petulant and silly. And of course, they got a white lib lady to go out and make the announcement. Here is the EU saying they're going to do exactly what Donald Trump said, but not because Donald Trump said it, but because they want to do it, I'm sure.
Europe is ready to assume its responsibilities.
Rearm Europe could mobilize close to 800 billion euros of defense expenditures for a safe and resilient Europe. We will, of course, continue working closely with our partners in NATO. This is a moment for Europe, and we are ready to step up.
Good, I guess. That's cool. Thanks for wanting to step up. That sounds nice. We're very excited about that. Speaking of financial responsibilities, I got into a debate this weekend, and apparently this is something Americans need to be reminded of. If you want to be like the Europeans, if you want to have a nanny state, a government, a large continental government that comes in and tells you what to do, or even your state or your local government come in and tell you what you want to do, then you need to vote for a different party than Republican. You need to not be an independent or a conservative. You need to be someone who sits on the political left. You think that problems should be solved outside of your own control. But if you don't think that way, you shouldn't be very excited about things like this. These are the distractions that continue to be floated out. These are not serious people doing not serious things and getting you to be excited because they think that you are easily distracted and that you're going to be happy with a pretty face and that you are going to root for a team and not for principles. These are people that are looking for you to back institution. And what I'm showing you on the screen right now is a picture of Anna Paulina Luna and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So APL is apparently her abbreviation. This is getting very frustrating, these triple digit acronyms. APL and AOC have announced that they are partnering to introduce a bill into Congress to cap credit card interest rates. If there was ever a solution in search of a problem, this is it. I really, really dislike this stuff. And I don't like unserious young ladies being in charge of things. It makes me kind of sickened. And the fact that people are celebrating it like this is somehow a win is really gross. There is going to be additional legislation that's going to be introduced into the Senate. So apparently Americans think that government intervention, and this is something that they're trying to get the right to champion. How do they do it? You put a pretty girl in front of it. This is the way they sold crappy beer for a long time. That's how they sold a crappy everything, actually, is with pretty women. You're trying to distract people and think that the problem with credit cards and the interest rates is that the interest rates are just too high. This is not good, folks. This is the opposite of being conservative. This is the opposite of personal responsibility. And so let me lay out the case here, because apparently this is a controversial take. And I got people pushing back saying, obviously you have no sympathy for the poor. I have a lot of sympathy for the poor. I have sympathy so much so that I would be interested in helping solve problems where I can see them, where I can directly impact it, but I don't want the government to touch it, ever. I'd like a church to be involved. I'd like community groups to be involved. I'd like neighbors to reach out and support neighbors. What I don't want is the federal government coming in and artificially capping a business, because what it insinuates is that people who are in significant credit card debt have no choice about it. And as someone who got in over my head when I was younger with a credit card and saw myself in thousands of dollars worth of credit card debt that I didn't have the money to pay, I learned my lesson. It was like around the time that I was 19 or 20 years old. Not a great excuse, still an adult, still responsible for my own decisions, but that's when it happened. And since then, since I was 19 or 20, so in the last 23 years, 24 years, I've made very deliberate and specific decisions about money because I learned that lesson. Credit cards can be a great way to learn about handling debt, how to handle your finances, how to track all of your purchases, to see where you're doing them, to get rewards. There's a lot of upsides that you can use them for. But if you can't afford something and you buy it because you think that you need it, then this is a problem that is a you problem, and it has nothing to do with our federal government, and it should have nothing to do with our state government, and to be fair, it should have almost nothing to do with our local government either. And if you put a cap on interest rates for credit card companies and say they can no longer lend out at a rate that is commensurate with the amount of risk that they are taking on, what they're going to do is not lend to people at all. And so the same people that are now in credit card debts will soon be in debt to credit card or to payroll or payday loan companies. And then they will soon be in debt to loan sharks and organized crime when they have to leave that and find a third party. If you want to stay within the realm of people making good decisions and give people the responsibility to handle their own business, then you have to believe that all the way across the board. You must be consistent. You cannot let like this idea of what they used to call it compassionate conservatism. That's how you lose things, because it's not based on principles. It's based on feelings. You can't articulate that. So when I see this kind of stuff, and I see people making the argument that you know, because people might have a financial emergency. Yes, they might. And if you can't handle that, it's on you. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't want to help you as your neighbor, as your friends, as your family members and loved ones, and so on, as people in your church. There's a really big market for that. There's a need for that. And there's always been a need for people who've been down on their luck and need to be helped. But what we don't need to see is the largest hammer to come down and crush a problem where it only sees regulation and stepping in and maxing certain things. You're just going to see this go away. Every time the federal government gets involved in something, it makes it more expensive, it makes it less efficient, and it ruins it. The housing market's a great example. Education is a good example. You'll see it in the medical industry. All of this stuff is terrible. These are cycles that are going to go on. The cycle of debt is not created because there's a certain like high interest rate from a credit card company. That's not what's going on there. It's bad finances, which could be done with maybe better education, maybe a little bit more understanding of how things work. All of these things are doable. None of them are going to be solved by the federal government. So maybe that's why I just dislike this so much. And I did find a little clip from somebody who's crying about it. It's the same sort of argument that we have to keep the Department of Education. It's like when it doesn't work, the Department of Education was a payoff created by Jimmy Carter to come in and pay off the unions, to give people opportunities to come and work in this thing, to throw a bunch of money towards administrations and administrators. If you're going to be consistent and you want to be a conservative, if you want to see things be successful, you have to argue from things that have actually worked. Randy Weingartner is a great example of something that it's solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved with the wrong tool. I've got a video of her crying about getting rid of the DOE, education, not energy. She's crying about it, and her entire point is essentially they want to save money and give it to billionaires. This is illogical. It's emotional argument. It doesn't have any bearing in reality. By the way, Randy Weingartner, who we're about to see here in a second, is making over $500,000 a year and has for quite a long time. For years, she's been making that. She has a net worth somewhere north of like $4 million from what I can tell. Hard to figure out exactly. She's crying about billionaires. Have you noticed that they've moved the needle? Doesn't matter whether it's Bernie Sanders or this lady on the left. They all want to now talk about billionaires. Billionaires are the problems. It was never a problem when their people were in power. What they really are saying is that they want to remove agency and personal responsibility. And they'd like the government to come in and pick up the slack on that, because people who don't know how things work decide to go that route. If you are poor in America, it is not a great situation, but you're the best place to be poor anywhere. Having been someone who had like negative $500 and change in my bank account when I was 25. I had no plan. I had no idea what I was going to do. I missed meals for days on end. I would have like one meal a week. And that's not a woe is me story. That's just like, that's the reality. If you make bad choices, you experience that. Hopefully you do it when you don't have children like I did. And then you set your life in order, or you don't. And you're responsible for the results. If we want to be a society of free people, then we also take on the risk of people failing. And if we want to prop them up, we should not do it with government ever. Here's a lady arguing that we should have the Department of Education because otherwise we're giving money to billionaires or some nonsense because kids are in public schools. You know that we do homeschooling here. It's an option. It's hard. It costs something. It costs the opportunity of like another spouse going out in the world. So you have to make different choices. You got to move across town, even when you don't want to. You have to not buy a home because it's too expensive at this moment, because the interest rates aren't great, because there's been a lot of financial irresponsibility. So you make responsible decisions on your own, and then you take the sort of the victories and you take the kind of the lumps that come along with it.
Is why so many people are so mad about it, because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So billionaires, kids of billionaires, they have it. They go to private schools. Everyone else, 90%, go to public schools. Don't take away their opportunity.
So let's stay on the facts.
Sorry,
no,
I'm
do
really
not apologize.
angry about this.
No, because this
I'm
is what
really
people
angry.
need to hear.
I taught kids in Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. What does that have to do with anything? What you're seeing, though, is a leftist media that has picked up the banner of victimization, that you are a victim and it's not your fault, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether you're a former federal employee. It doesn't matter whether you're someone who's in credit card debt. It doesn't matter if you're someone who went to public school and now, I don't know, like you taught at public school and you make $500,000 a year. You're still a victim. If you're selling victimhood, you're not selling what America was based on. America was based on opportunity. It was based on, solving problems with grit. Like, there are certain values that are actually very inherently American. And we're seeing people, even on the political right, that are going to embrace the opposite of it because it's convenient, because it's packaged well, because it's being sold. The UFC thing is one of them. This credit card thing is one of them. The Tate brothers, who I've seen pop back up again, is, all part of this. So all of these things are not American values as I understand them. And I'm going to talk about it because there's no other way to do it. We have to at least insulate ourselves from what I would call an information op. An information op is when somebody is giving information that sounds really good and it gets you to think a certain way without considering that it's actually antithetical to either your self-interest or your principles. And you give up on your own principles because of that. Does that make some sense? We're going to get a little further into that. Speaking of people that do share our values, how about our folks over at Patriot Mobile? It's actually part of the stuff that we talk about here. Just because we won an election doesn't mean that the fight is over to restore this nation. In fact, I would say it is very, very early on in this. It's time to take a stand. You could do so with Patriot Mobile, who's leading the charge as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. And Patriot Mobile offers you a way to vote with your wallet. This is the way we do it. Without compromising on quality or convenience, you don't just get excellent cell phone service. You're getting a call to action to defend your rights and your freedom. It's an outstanding nationwide coverage guarantee. That's assured because they operate on all three nationwide networks, but you're also going to get American tech support, which is really nice. You can do it today. If you have American cell phone coverage in the United States, you can get it in the United States with Patriot Mobile, no matter where you are. The difference is when you spend your money, you're going to be supporting the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and the sanctity of life and our veterans and first responders, like we said, those values that we have here. Switching is easy. You can keep your number. You can lose your number. If you don't like it anymore, you can upgrade your phone or you can keep your existing phone. 100% US-based tech support to help you out. If you want to call them, it's 972-PATRIOT. But if you want to go online, which is what most people do, it's patriotmobile.com/KSS. That's Kilo Sierra Sierra. That's the promo code. You'll get a free month of service when you do so. patriotmobile.com/KSS. Switch and defend freedom with every call and text you make. patriotmobile.com/KSS. So, why am I on such a tear on this thing? Because it's just, I keep seeing things that are not serious. Here's another not serious thing. This is CNN. Is this CNN covering this? I think so. CNN covering that Trump is now in a critical phase. But what we're seeing is Republicans looking to kick the can yet again. They're looking for you to ignore the thing that they said they were going to do. Do you remember when Mike Johnson said he was going to be the speaker and we were going to get single issue bills for funding and they were going to pass them out, essentially line item funding? Like, here's how much this department's going to cost. And this is what we're going to do with it. This is the entire thing that people have been cheering about with Doge. They said, can you just give us some freaking accountability? In my household, if I spend money, I'm responsible for it. Why is the federal government not? And why has it not been for decades? My entire life, the federal government has just written blank checks and run deficit spending. I read this book, which I've shared with you guys in the past. And if you guys want to go read some pulp fiction, you can go do so. The book's called Term Limits. It's by a guy named Vince Flynn. And it's not so interesting in so much as what the story is. The story is about like a team of special operators who decide to go off and kill off some politicians because they're really fed up and they don't want their friends killed. This was written in 1997, pre-9/11, pre-global war on terror. But the craziest thing to me is that they were talking about how out of control Washington, D.C. was because they had almost reached $10 trillion in the federal deficit, in the federal debt. That sounds quaint, doesn't it? You're at 8 and you're closing in on 10 trillion. We are now 3.5 times that in only 25 years. So what the hell's been going on? They keep doing this. CNN is saying Trump's presidency moves into a new phase with a critical test of his power in Congress. It's going to take a novel path as he tries to enshrine some of his transformations of the country, wielding power that is vast and questionable on the executive level. Republicans hope to vote on a bill to extend federal funding, another continuing resolution, until September. And if they cede, After dropping talks with Democrats on a bipartisan measure, they'll trigger a showdown in the Senate that could end in a damaging government shutdown. You notice that CNN is calling it damaging. Do you know what's not damaging? A government shutdown. Ever. It's fine. If the government stops working, the critical features continue to have to go to work in order to keep their job. They all get back paid. That's part of it. And the second thing is, as I've said over and over again, they're not going to even, like, the most dangerous thing that can happen is that you'd recognize the federal government doesn't do anything for you on a personal level. We heard this about the DOE a minute ago. In fact, we did it with Steve Friend on Friday. So if you saw that program, you know what I'm talking about. 95% of the education is handled at the state level. So we're spending $270 billion at the federal level to impact less than 5%. It's just chasing bad money for the least amount of return. And that's the way the federal government does a lot of things. They make terrible decisions with your money because they are the furthest one away from you. This is the Milton Friedman concept of how can money be spent? You can spend your money on you, and that's how you do it most efficiency. You can spend your money on someone else, and you're going to do that pretty efficiently as well. You can spend someone else's money on yourself, and you'll do that okay, but it's their money, so you don't care nearly as much. And you can spend someone else's money on someone else, and you care almost not at all. That's the federal government regularly. That's how Steve Friend couldn't get more ink toner for his printers when he was working out on an Indian reservation and printing off lots of paper files, but he could get $35,000 for a Razor scooter so they could go drive off-road once a year. That's how the federal government works. And if you don't know it, you've never seen it before, this is this gross sense of entitlement that continues to happen. Here's another great example. We heard about last week, we were hearing Lee Zeldin talking about the gold bars that were being kicked off the Titanic, right? And so they were talking about gold bars being kicked off, and these are the things, and this is where they were hiding our money. They took $20 billion and dropped it into an EPA slush fund. There's been some coverage trying to spin this back. Again, the mainstream media is doing coverage for the inefficiency, for the bloat, for the rot, for the employees that basically add zero value. And one of their favorites was someone named Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor in Georgia. And apparently, she had a foundation that got $1.9 billion. And do you know what they did? They helped a tiny town in Georgia get new appliances that reduced the energy consumption rate and reduced their electrical bills by 50%. Imagine a small town, let's say it had 10,000 people in it. If 10,000 people saved $100, right? Then maybe they saved $1 million in total. Check my math on that. I'm doing it on the fly. I think that's right. 10,000 add 100. No, what is that? Yeah, it's $1 million. If they saved $1 million in energy costs, it only cost them $1.9 billion to do it. This is the argument. This is what his name is. I think it's Chris Hayes talking to her, and they're running cover for it. They're like, look, you were just trying to make the world a better place. And she's like, yeah. We just spent $2 billion to save people $90 on their energy bills every month. How do you make this argument with a straight face? Even the numbers they're saying right now are pretty obviously crazy.
One of the ironies of the attack on you, and I'm going to play what he did, was that my understanding is the program at the source of this whole thing is a program to lower costs for people. Do I have that top line correct?
You have it absolutely right.
Okay, so I'm gonna play what he had to say, and then I'm gonna ask you to explain what the program is that was such an obvious, ludicrous laugh line for the Republicans there. Take a listen.
$1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her?
Okay, so what is this organization? What is your relation to it, and what does it do?
In 2023 and 2024, I led a program called Vitalizing DeSoto. We worked in a tiny town in South Georgia to demonstrate that by replacing energy inefficient appliances with efficient appliances, you can lower your cost. And in fact, we accomplished that. for 75% of the community. They got appliances that are lowering their bills right now. We had one woman who saw her electric bill cut in half from $180 to $98. That's what we delivered. And based on that program, a coalition of organizations, famous organizations, came together and said to the EPA, if we can do this here, we can do this for millions more Americans. Let us invest the money of America in lowering the cost for Americans. And the EPA said, okay, great, go for it.
That's socialism, by the way, right there. That's money redistributed, the least efficient possible way of doing so. That is, I'm going to tax you, and they're going to tax me, and I'm going to send my check to the government, and the government's going to turn around and pay some think tank group to help counsel people on how to buy more energy efficient things so that for $2 billion, one lady will save $98 in a small little town somewhere and call that a victory. How much did Stacey Abrams get paid for that? I'll look into it later. I guarantee you, if it's anything, and it certainly was, then it was a scam. And how many people do they have on staff? Because that makes it a scam. This is the nature of the federal government. The government is the least efficient way to solve problems. They are entitled. They think they should be the only, like their job exists, but it's completely detached from the money of it. Let me give you a great example from when I was working in the Bureau. So I worked as an FBI special agent for 6 years. 3 of those years, I was on a specialty surveillance team, which was actually not a prestigious role. It was the place where I thought nobody would screw with me because nobody wanted to be on this team. And we actually made it into something really cool and fun. It became one of the most fun ways that you could be an agent. We sat out in cars, peed in bottles, talked on radios, looked through binoculars and cameras, and took pictures of bad guys, many of whom were not that big of a deal, and some of whom were really bad guys. We did some MS-13 cases. We did some legitimate terrorist cases, not very many, but some. We went out there and saw the BS about the white supremacy cases, which were basically made up. We got to see some white-collar fraud. We would go and identify subjects in their vehicles and where they were going and pattern things out so that they could safely be taken out of custody or into custody. So we did some interesting stuff. But people would just throw surveillance on things as a throwaway. They didn't realize that when they hit, please put surveillance on my subject, that it had a cost. They never looked at it that way. If you were a private business and you had a team that had, let's say, 8 people making, let's call it $100,000 a year, you could break it down. It's actually more than that. It's probably like 130 or 140 because most of the agents I work with were very senior, some of them making $175K a year. I worked out the numbers on it and brought it to my boss and said, our surveillance team domestically or like locally costs between $5,000 and $8,000 a day per shift. And if you take us and put us in the field somewhere where we have to fly and we have to do hotels and per diem, it's about $10,000 a day. So whenever you hit the button that says put a surveillance team on it, I want you to tell the case agents we are looking at a $5,000 to $8,000 per day cost. And can we get that ROI? Let them at least know what it costs to put us out there. Because there's an opportunity cost. We're not able to go on some other cases. And if you look at it that way, if you were a business and say, hey, this is my resource, it's $10,000 a day to put them in the field somewhere, it better be worth $10,000 for us to have that happen, then you start thinking about things very differently. Hey, man, I'm going to give you a budget. Would you spend $10,000 on this surveillance team going out there? Would you do it yourself? Would you have one person do it instead of 8 professionals with a bunch of specialty equipment? And by the way, we're going after crimes, theoretically, that are pretty big deal. Either like sex trafficking, RICO murders, that would be worth your time. How about frauds for $5 million, $20 million, $120 million worth of COVID funds? That's okay. What if it's a pill mill where a doctor's writing scripts and he's like making an extra $40,000 or $50,000 a year? Is that really worth our time? So you should be looking at what is the cost that we are actually doing? What is the return on the investment of putting them out there? The federal government never looks at it that way. And the minute that you start instructing people to do it, they change everything about what they're doing. They go, oh shit, is that what it's about? Stacey Abrams is classic government thinking. We're going to invest $2 billion to save one lady $98. They all do it that way. They all think they're 100% necessary. They all think that there is no other way to be except the way that they do it, and they do it inefficiently, and they don't care because they are not measured by metrics like any of you would. If you ran a business, you'd know better. You'd never spend your money on those resources. You might not even have a specialty surveillance team. You'd go, you know what? I think we can do it with 1 guy or 2 guys. Maybe we just have 1 national team. We're going to get to that because Kash Patel went and spent time with one of the most expensive things that the FBI runs, which is one of the most expensive things that the American government does. Honesty. They are a Ferrari. It's called the Hostage Rescue Team, the HRT, and it has everything to do with this USC thing and some of the window dressings we're getting. We're getting like really cool posturing from people that don't understand what the problem is, and it's scary as hell to me because we elected people to solve these problems. Some of the stuff's getting done. I don't care if the government shut down. I say go for it. Trump's doing a great job with that sort of thing. Putting people into Doge is a fantastic idea because it's showing people exactly where the waste is, and when they shut down the government, people will go like, man, nothing happened. Good. Cut that $2 billion. Cut the $20 billion from the EPA. Cut the whole damn EPA. Shrink it down to a point where it actually does something and get a return on our investment. Let's start doing it like that. Everybody told me they wanted Donald Trump because he was a businessman. Let's run things a little bit closer to a business. It's never going to be perfect because it's government, but you can get closer. Or we can be really ridiculous about things. Let's talk about a business that I like real quick before we get too deep into the weeds here. Obviously, I'm fueled up, you guys can hear, and I'm running on a Patriot Cooler. Because I am running in between houses, this thing was filled up when I started. It's almost done right now, so you can tell I'm fully tanked up with caffeine. PatriotCoolers.com, promo code KYLE, our single longest sponsor. They make a fantastic product. I moved an entire box of just Patriot Cooler stuff, plus a cooler, plus a soft cooler, and I still have a backpack downstairs in the garage I got to move over. We have a ton of their stuff. I've never been disappointed by any of their products. They all work as advised. They all are great gifts. If you're looking for something for someone you love and you're like, hey, what do I get them? You can work with them and get a custom engraving like we have over here on the wall. If you want your logo, they'll work with your company and your business. They make a fantastic corporate gift, something people will hold on to and like. And I just had some other folks send me from one of the promotional companies. They sent me a mug, and I'm like, I can't do it. It's not as good. You can tell. They put a lot of thought into their design. They solve problems that are actually needing to be solved. I think they're on generation 3 right now of the Patriot Cooler tumblers. So whatever you go out there, you're never going to buy something and be like, these people suck. And if you reach out to them, you actually get a human being who's going to want to solve your problem and fix it. They're not a big company. They're just a great company. So PatriotCoolers.com. Again, promo code Kyle saves yourself 10% free shipping if you guys decide to buy $50 or more. And that's easy to do. Once you buy one, you might as well buy one for yourself too. So, don't just get one for your life. Let's get into this piece here. This is the why government is such a entitled little brat. This is the other thing we've been seeing. DHS is talking about performing polygraphs. By the way, this is an NBC article crying about the fact that they might polygraph people to do the job that they're sworn to do, not the job that they wish that they were doing. People from DHS right now are having moral quandaries, and they're saying, well, I don't feel very comfortable with the idea that we're going to go lock up people that broke into our country and live here illegally. So I'm going to go tell these people that DHS is coming for them. And Kristi Noem has announced, hey, we're going to prosecute you idiots. You cannot leak. You must not leak law enforcement sensitive plans. If you are in a job where you think that is acceptable, you are so far removed from the mission of what it is that your agency does. Imagine being in a position to get the briefing on where ICE is going to be going and rounding up illegal aliens, and then being like, but I love illegal aliens and I don't want them to be deported for no particular reason other than the fact that they suck up our resources. You are so detached from the mission set of what Homeland Security is about that you decide to call people up or tell the news organizations. You need to get the hell out. We could do away with whatever it is your department is part of. That is waste and nasty. Watch this.
Everyone, I wanted to give you a quick update. We have identified 2 leakers of information here at the Department of Homeland Security who have been telling individuals about our operations and putting law enforcement lives in jeopardy. We plan to prosecute these 2 individuals and hold them accountable for what they've done. And we're going to continue to do all that we can to keep America safe.
All right. I'm not real crazy about the messaging there, only because I think Kristi Noem is pretty and she seems to be just a pretty face to be able to, once again, this is the Anna Paulina Luna thing. This is the AOC. Give me a pretty face. I don't know what she has to do with law enforcement. She was running around doing cosplay and wearing body armor, which is silly. I'm sure the boomer types that are men, there are men who are just excited about hearing a pretty woman say something and then they want to agree. I'm not that audience. I actually look very skeptically on this kind of thing. But she's saying the correct thing in this case. What she should be saying is, if you decide to leak, not only, she shouldn't just say, we're going to lock up these leakers. Everybody, there's an entire culture of government entitlement. And that's what Trump's election was supposed to go and root out. It was supposed to go after these people. So when you see this other story, this one's coming from MSNBC now, or is it? No, this is CBS piece. Watchdog fired by Donald Trump raises alarm over future independent of government oversight. There's no oversight. I've got another story about the EEOC talking about how, here, actually, let me just put it up on here. This guy's saying that there's independent oversight within the government. Number one, the government is supposed to theoretically answer to the chief executive. We've gotten so far away from a constitutional principle, they don't understand it. And then you've got this lady. This is a story coming in on ABC's news website. Meet the federal worker who went rogue. She hopes it lights a fire under people. This lady basically decided unilaterally as a low-level federal employee that she is in charge of adjudicating LGBTQIA plus nonsense, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. And so she sent not just a letter to her boss, but to 1,000 random coworkers as well, to a couple of listservs. And then it made it out onto Reddit. And then it made it out into the public. And so she's a hero that's resisting. You can go and tell your boss that what you're doing is immoral, illegal, unethical, etc. That's your job. As a whistleblower within the government, it is your job. I know a little something about that. But if you think that your job is to go and do performative nonsense and say, look at my virtue, I'm standing up for these people. If the White House tells you that there are only two genders, which, by the way, of course, there are only two genders, what the hell are you talking about, lady? What are you doing? Your job is to stop, like EEOC was out there to stop black people from being discriminated against and not being hired simply because they were black. Not saying that they're supposed to get a special shake because of affirmative action. It was saying that women were supposed to have a fair shake if they were equal to the person that was applying, that you shouldn't just look at gender and say, well, now you're not going to get hired because we don't hire women here. You're not supposed to be out there trying to pick winners and losers. And that's what this lady decided to go do. The mainstream media is all over it. They love it. It's their favorite. And that's because they sympathetically have this like compassionate angle that's false. That's not based on principles. It's based on just like victimization. It's carrying around things that aren't real. Here's the last one. I think we actually showed this graphic previously because there was an entire story about losing hope and federal employees that are getting removed by DOJ. And it was over at, I can't remember what the organization, I think National Institute of Science. I think that's right. Or National Institute of Health. National Science Foundation. That's what it was, at NSF. So that's where this picture came from. The person on the top there, I think, is a transgender person. Then there's this black guy in the corner. There's a lady who I covered up. You lose all hope. Federal workers are gripped by mental health distress amid Donald Trump cuts. Why? Why? How many of you have lost a job in your life? Just sitting there, you know that you have. How many jobs have you lost? I'll do an inventory. I lost one at a restaurant. I lost one at a county job that was actually really, really cool. And I wasn't able to work there because I was straight. And they ended up hiring a gay guy to replace me because I showed up my first day on a motorcycle after interviewing, driving a minivan or a station wagon. That happened. I lost my FBI job. I lost 3 solid career type jobs that I really I did like, and I wanted to continue working in. You move on. I never even filed for unemployment when I lost the FBI job, folks. Do you know that? Not that it matters. It's not a heroic thing. I just didn't. It didn't occur to me. I was too busy moving forward and trying to figure out what my next move was. These people are getting claims of PTSD. It's all over Reddit, by the way. I have this Reddit thing. It's like federal workers, and it pops up on my phone. It's the funniest thing in the world. It's full of like lib tears. But this is what it says. A call came that would end his life. Oh my God, I can't even get into this. It's all stories of people emotionally talking about how they had trauma in their life one time, and now Donald Trump gave them another trauma by taking the job that they always thought they should have. These are probationary employees. When you sign up to be a federal employee, you get 2 years where they can fire you for no reason at all. 2 years, unless you're a veteran. Then you got 1 year. But if they change their mind, this happens in companies all the time. They hire you on. It's the last on, first out kind of thing. You're the last one to get hired. You have the least amount of tenure here. You have the least amount of knowledge. We have the least amount invested in you. You're the first one out. Adios. This is not crazy stuff. This is normal. This happens everywhere. I don't get it. I don't get that we're seeing coverage for this. There's another couple ones. There's a couple funny stories. Oh, there's like the news is littered with this. Workers are fearing the future as Donald Trump casts a shadow over the wind industry was something that CNN was reporting on. There's a whole story here about how the wind industry, which is 100% funded by federal subsidies and federal permits and offshore leases that have to be very favorable. We did a story here not too long ago talking about how they were leasing out ocean floor land for pennies on its actual value, and that the fishermen and the crustacean farmers, the people that are out there looking for shrimp and lobsters and all this kind of stuff, would absolutely kill to have access to the ocean floors for that kind of money. And instead, they're giving it to foreign countries to put wind turbines up because they're trying to pick winners and losers and outcomes. And they're not trying to do things that are like, one, founded in a constitutional principle, and two, they're not even founded in basic market economics. These things do not stand on their own. Most people who have crappy federal jobs are not turning the actual work product that we are paying them for. So who cares if we lose them? Elon Musk found that out when he took over Twitter, by the way, right? He took over Twitter and called it X afterwards. So it was Twitter at the time that he bought it. And he bought it for a bunch of money, and he laid off like 75% of the staff, and the website never stopped working. What do you do when you find out that you have 80% bloat, that 3 out of 4 of your employees are not doing something? I think that's easily the case in the federal government, based on my own experience. Every single time I wanted to do something, I was the first time that anyone has ever done it, even though it was the job of the people that I was talking to. They had never done their job. These wind turbines are yet another thing. These are federal work programs. And these are subsidies. These are pet projects for somebody that they're pocketing the cash, but they don't stand on their own 2 feet. If we can't do wind turbines here for profit, then we wouldn't do them normally. And it shouldn't be out of your pocket, and it certainly shouldn't be out of my pocket. Just in the same way that if you don't have the money, you shouldn't borrow it, because that's what a credit card is. You shouldn't be running up credit card debt. I don't know. I just thought we were getting a fiscally responsible mindset. And instead what we're seeing is more of the same. A lot of places. Except the people that are getting the most hate, which is the Doge people. If you're catching the most hate in 2025, you're probably doing the right thing when it comes to eliminating cost, standing against the status quo, and saying, hey, how about a novel idea? We start doing responsibility and basing things on principles instead of on what we've always done. That's my take. I got a take that is not going to make you guys happy because Kash Patel has recently gone out there, and you know I like Kash. As a human being, I think he's a great person. This is an absolutely awful decision. He is now talking about getting the FBI straightened out by bringing in UFC training for FBI agents. That was my thumbnail because I do not get it. If you want to make the FBI great again, if you want to solve the problems, you should bring in people that know what the problems are. And by the way, we spent the last 2 years telling the man what they are. And he's going to come up with this nonsense. I don't know if this is a kickback to Dana White, if this is just like some kind of a publicity stunt, if it gets MAGA people excited in the same way Kristi Noem does because she's pretty and UFC sounds cool and sexy. But let me just be very clear. There is zero problem with FBI agents bringing people into custody. They don't struggle with this. Ask any J6er. They all got arrested, no problem. And it's not because they were compliant, because almost every FBI arrest is done compliantly. I have arrested people who were accused of cutting people's heads off with machetes and sex trafficking young girls. And they put their hands in the air and cried like little babies when we came up to them. Because there'd be one guy standing there and 4 grown men wearing body armor with the words F or the letters FBI on it, and 2 of them holding rifles and 2 of them walking up. They get cuffed with no problem whatsoever. The FBI Academy does a great job. They've got some black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that are out there that are legitimate fighters that teach you legal techniques to bring people into custody, like every law enforcement academy does. There is zero problem with taking people into custody. This is solving a made-up problem. This is another solution in search of a problem. Same as capping interest rates on credit cards, as far as I'm concerned. It's theatrical and nonsense. There is no reason for it. FBI agents do not have a problem. I mentioned this online to somebody and they were like, well, maybe we could do it with less. There's almost 15 people. It's like 15 to 1 when you go to arrest a bad guy that's like real serious. If you're in the FBI and you go, well, maybe it should be 3 to 1 or 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. Yeah, maybe it should be, but people are bored. They actually want to do law enforcement. Maybe you could get the FBI focusing on the things that Kash Patel told us he was going to focus on, solving criminal cases and not doing this shit. This looks super fun, wearing cool guy clothes, which have never gotten dirty, and hanging out on the HRT range where the Blackhawks fly around. I've shot on that range. I've been where he's standing. It's a cool thing to do. It feels like you are part of something really big and neat. You think that you're part of the special operations world again. That is not what you got put into the space for. So here's Dana White talking about how he's going to be making a deal with the FBI regarding whether or not they're going to go and start bringing in UFC fighters to train FBI agents. I'll tell you another reason why it's a dumb idea in just a second.
Kash Patel was here tonight. I know he made some news saying there could be a deal between you guys and the FBI at some point. I guess, has there been any further discussions and where you are on that? What might that look like?
Well, after he said that, my phone blew up. You know, everybody wants to be the trainers to the FBI now, so I got everybody hit. But he's dead serious about that. I talked to him about it tonight. Yeah, he's dead serious, so we'll see. We'll see how that starts to come together.
What problem is that solving, folks? Here's the real problem. There are constitutional issues at play when it comes to bringing people into custody. You are only allowed to use the amount of force that is necessary. That is determined by the Attorney General's guidelines. That is determined by every single constitutional court. Anybody who's worked in law enforcement knows. You either have a escalation of force spectrum that based on the articulable force used by a subject, then you can use the contrasting force in order to overcome it, or you can use deadly force when it's appropriate. What you can't do is armbar submissions and takedown. Do you want to know how I know? I almost got failed on my final examination for what they call defensive tactics, which is bringing people into custody, physically fighting with them, because I instinctively went for an armbar because I studied military combatives like many of you probably did. And I know how to do it. And I know how to take somebody and throw a leg over their neck and over their chest and pull the arm and lock it out and put them in a position of pain compliance. And if you do that, you actually fail. Because the goal of an FBI submission is to get somebody into cuffs, not to make them tap out. Because if they tap out, then they might start fighting the second you try to put cuffs in. Your job is to break contact, get a gun on them, tell them to obey, and then put handcuffs on them to take them in so they can go to their initial appearance in front of a judge. You're not supposed to ground and pound and beat the shit out of people, even though it feels good. It's not allowed. You will get hit with civil rights violations. You cannot do that. You cannot go in and fight like a UFC fighter if you are a law enforcement officer. We don't train fighters. We train people that know how to keep themselves safe. And in a fight to the death, maybe it'd be better if they did. But the FBI never does that because they're not freaking cops. You're not a cop when you are a federal investigator. When you are a special agent, your job is simply to go out there, conduct a long-term investigation. 95 to 98% of your job is either done in the field, doing interviews, sitting behind a computer. It has almost zero to do with applying physical force to anyone. And the tiny little fraction where you get to go out and do that, which is the cool part of the job, no doubt about it. Everybody that wants to go forward wants to do that. It's a tiny little fraction of the time when you get to go do it. And when you do, you have to do it within some very measured parameters or you're going to end up in jail too. Like Michael Byrd should have for shooting Ashley Babbitt. If you use force inappropriately, whether it be less than lethal or lethal force, you are accountable. And it is not tolerable to go out there and fight like a UFC fighter. It's crazy to think about that. This is theatrics. This is bread and circuses. And in the meantime, my buddy Garrett has been without pay for 30 months for bringing forward credible information of government malfeasance, and they haven't reinstated him, and it's a stroke of a pen away. So I'm a little bit frustrated right now that it's very easy to do. They've got about 1 week left. It's going to be the week of March the 14th onward. When Dan Bongino gets sworn in, they get one more bite at this apple. And I don't mean this lightly. The ability to change the momentum within the FBI is going to be inertia-based. Things that are at rest will stay at rest. Things that are in motion will stay at motion. Right now, it is at status quo, no motion. Going out and showing cool guy pictures where you're hanging out and taking pictures outside of the HRT range, or if you're standing there jumping out of one of the Bearcats and you're looking on the HRT compound and feeling, it's a real cool compound, people. They spend millions of dollars a year on multiple boats. I think they have like $3, $4, $5 million boats. Somebody will fact check me on the numbers on the boats, but they've got 3 boats that have never been used operationally. They're high speed, super cool for like water infill, where they might take a hostile craft or something. It's never been done. The HRT mission, the thing that he's doing there in these pictures, the HRT mission is a $40 million a year boondoggle. One of the things that one of the guys was briefing me on, because I went and got ready to try out for this team. I was going to go be part of the mobility team, the support team as a medic. And one of the things that they did is they told me they rented a sailboat, like this like multi-million-dollar sailboat, like a 42-foot sailboat in Alaska. And they sailed it down to Cabo in case they needed a sailboat to be able to get somewhere with the HRT operators and put them in the water. What the shit are we talking about here? $40 million a year for basically a regular SWAT team mission. They're awesome at what they do. They're super fit, highly capable, tier 1 operations law enforcement officers that have a mission that basically doesn't exist. And so you got cash out there getting snowed by this nonsense at $40 million a year when we should be doging it. We're on the clock right now, people. No doubt about it. There is no chance to fix this if you do not start fixing it immediately. It's got to be done. So when Dan comes in, and he's getting sworn in apparently on March the 14th, when that happens, they have a very narrow window to change the tide, to turn the tide, and to make people start realizing that the FBI is going to be accountable to criminal law enforcement, get rid of the intelligence apparatus, stop doing cool guy pictures, not going out to hang out at the USC, not going somewhere where you've got Dana White here, like giving high fives to the Tate brothers, which we keep seeing in the conservative space. Here, watch this. Yeah, I'm going to let this run in the background. He's hugging Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate saying, welcome to the States, boys. At the same time, he's out there like hosting Kash Patel. You've got the current FBI director sitting ringside with these two guys who are accused of sex trafficking minors who are world-class pieces of shit. Absolute garbage human beings. And I don't want to hear anybody tell me, well, they haven't been convicted yet. Neither was Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. He wasn't convicted yet either. And we all sort of assume that he was that, right? There's plenty of people that have acted like complete garbage, that have convicted themselves with their own words, that we know what they did because they said it to us. And you got Kash out there hanging out this. We cannot have this. Like, you don't have time to measure the curtains and to see if you can get a new desk and to try to have a nice time fitting into the job. You need to hit the ground running. So Dan's going to give him the second shot at this. And it is such an important thing to happen. Because if not, we're going to lose it. We're going to lose the momentum. And for all the doging and for all of the correcting of the USAID money and the CIA stuff going on overseas, what do you care about more? We assume that there's going to be a certain amount of fraud and scamming and wasteful spending in government. We've been seeing it our whole lives. All of you that are older than me, you've seen it for longer. All of you that are my age or younger, you know it too. We need to see indictments. We need to see arrests. Not UFC arrests, real arrests like the FBI does. You can tell them to come in and surrender. A lot of these people have a ton of money. We need to see convictions and we need to see sentencing and putting people in prison that have done bad things. I don't care whether it's about the Epstein situation or any of the other crimes that the FBI can be looking into. There's tons of evil in this world. And if you're going to make your very expensive $11 billion a year agency, that is the FBI, do the thing that it's designed to do, lock up people for violations of interstate law, then it needs to start protecting the Americans from force and fraud, not teaching them how to do flippant arm bars and ground and pound. That's bullshit. And I'm saying it definitively. It is optics. Right now, the FBI is handling the FBI director like it always has. And we've got a guy that we like. So we want him to be successful. I want Kash Patel to be successful. I am blatantly partisan about this. I want to see him be successful. I want to see him win because then we all win. And even the libs win if that's the case. Because civil liberties should be the priority. Not ground and pound. Not UFC BJJ fighting. I don't care about anybody learning how to do takedowns or hip throws or ankle locks. These are not critical things. They do head tilts and stuff like that. There's some really good tactics. I've used some of the tactics before. I've used them in the field. They're effective. This is crazy. Can't be wasting our time on this stuff. All right, I do have something lighthearted. One of the things is that the left likes to win things by changing the definition of words. You guys know that, right? Before we go over to that, let me just throw this on the screen here. You can support the program by watching us. You can share it. You should definitely check out our Sunday sit down that we did with Etam Heim. Follow us on YouTube if you want. It's at Kyle Seraphin. It's at Kyle Seraphin on X. It's kyleseraphin.com. If you want to be on the locals, Spotify is the best way to watch it in the replay. If you guys are listening on Apple or anywhere else and you're thinking, hey, maybe I'll watch the video sometime too. You could do it without pop-up ads over on Spotify. It's a free download. It's a free app. We don't charge anything extra, and neither do they. You can just get a load of that. We're going to go into just like a final palate cleanse because I need it. And like I said, I'm tired. I don't like daylight savings time, and I'm tired of not seeing movement on the one thing that I care the most about. I did vote specifically because I needed to see the FBI put in check, and it's not. I think it's an existential threat, and I don't say those words accidentally. I think it's existential that we solve this problem. Because otherwise we're going to have status quo and then they're going to remove him the next time that somebody else comes into power. You get one bite at this. So anyway, it's coming up soon. All right, how about something a little bit funny? How about changing the definition of the word wedding? Sometimes people can't catch on. I love this. I love being confused. This is a Keen and Peele skit. These guys are some of my favorite comedians. They say stuff that is just, I don't know. I don't know if they're conservatives or not, but they certainly are saying things that resonate with me. It's very funny. If you're confused about what a gay wedding is, let's straighten it out for you. Gay weddings are just like straight weddings, except they're gay. And that can confuse maybe your whole family. Here's their little skit on that.
A gay wedding is just like a straight wedding. Yes, sir.
So then do the men wear dresses and then the women would wear suits?
No. You would just wear exactly what you would wear at a straight wedding.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, none of us are gay. So I assume that we would all sit then in the straight section.
The straight section?
Yeah.
Oh, the straight section, he means as opposed to the gay section.
No. There's no sections, guys.
But the gay people.
No. What you would just sit
on the straight.
No, Larry, listen to me.
But in the aisle.
Yeah, you would just sit on the side of the person that you were friends with or that your family's members, just like in a straight wedding.
So we just guess who's gay.
Or not. You could just.
We guess who's gay.
Okay. Guess who.
When in the ceremony do we sing Over the Rainbow?
Well, you don't. You don't. This is a religious ceremony, so you wouldn't be singing that during the service.
No, all right. No, I'm just asking.
I'm nervous because I can only do jazz hands for about 3 minutes before my hands start to cramp.
Oh, sorry. I don't think anyone's going to expect you. I don't think anyone's going to expect you to have to do jazz hands.
Now, can we see the pony show from the straight section, or are we way in the back somewhere?
Ma'am, again, there's no straight section. What is a pony show?
You know when y'all go like this.
No, there won't be any of this during the ceremony.
When do we sing YMCA?
Oh, sir, not during the ceremony.
Okay.
What about Macho Man?
Nope.
I don't know where to buy no gay presents.
Well, I don't know what a gay present is. Usually what couples do is they just register at a store, like a straight couple would.
Is it a gay store or
just a regular store?
Where do you get the euros to buy gay gifts?
Are you saying euros? You wouldn't use euros.
No, it's a good question, Finney. We should make some eye contact so we make sure that the communication's happening.
Yeah.
I think he wants to know: is it like a different currency, or is it more like camel cash?
No, just good old-fashioned U.S. dollars. Yep.
Do we have to participate in the anal sex? Oh. Or can we just watch and cheer in a fireman's hat?
No, there's no anal sex and no fireman's hat.
Oh, okay.
It's cunnilingus.
Is that a question, sir?
When do we get to sing It's Raining Men, Hallelujah, It's Raining Men?
You don't.
So there's no gay hymns in the ceremony?
Sir, there's no such thing as a gay hymn.
Well, does the fake priest look like a real priest or like a nun?
It's going to be a real priest.
Or?
No, there's no or.
Is it a sexy boat captain, then he takes his clothes off?
What? No.
Do we throw something other than rice?
Like what, sir? What would you throw other than rice?
I don't know. Couscous, Skittles.
Guys, a gay wedding is just like a straight wedding, okay? It's exactly the same.
But when they kiss, is it okay to stand up and say, ew?
No, it's not, because that would be homophobic.
This is from the man who won't allow gay hymns at the gay wedding.
Okay, but like an involuntary gasp.
I would just, I guess, try to curb that behavior.
Okay, I'll look away then.
Oh, my God.
Now, is RuPaul going to be there?
No, I don't think Delroy knows RuPaul.
Neil Patrick Harris?
No.
Ooh, Doogie. What if you don't want your picture on the internet?
This is ridiculous!
Gary, ridiculous. Is that a gay term?
Okay, yep, I'll show myself out.
This is testy, isn't it?
You can go.
Good luck. Let's go, Stefan.
Everything about that is my favorite. I don't know why I watched that. It has nothing to do with today's show other than they made fun of euros and called it gay money, which I think is great. And they wanted to know if it's camel cash. And they wanted to know if you could sing gay hymns. Donald Trump loves gay hymns, right? That's why we have the most, what do we have? The most open and large tent ever. All right, whatever. There's nothing, that doesn't tie to anything we did. I just think it's funny. And we need a laugh. I hope you guys have a great start to your week and you're dealing okay with daylight savings time. I need a nap. I'm going to be doing something with a guy named Barry. I have to double check. Sorry, I'll put it out on social media, but I'm doing a YouTube hit later on today. So if you guys are looking over on YouTube and you see my name pop up, that's what's happening. I think it's Barry Cunningham, but now I'm not. Now I don't trust myself because I just watched that. Look forward to seeing you guys in the morning again tomorrow, 09:30 Eastern time. It's 8:30 Central here on Rumble, on X, on YouTube. We'll see you guys in the morning. Have a great day. God bless you.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.